And we are live just a few minutes late today, folks, with episode 3677 of the Survival Podcast. We have live chat pinging around already for those that are watching the live video version of the podcast. If you're listening to this on audio and going, I'd kind of like to communicate with other TSP members during a live stream sometime, but I just never get the alert from YouTube. Get on the Telegram channel and or list. And every day, 1 to 2 hours prior to us going live, there'll be an announcement of the time, the locations, everything, where you can see that. You can also connect with me on other social media platforms. If you go by the survivalpodcast.com and click on Get Social, you can see all the places you can do that. Right now, Tom is planning to put Jake on a raft at Camp Carter for this fall's workshop so that everybody else can sleep in the live chat. You're missing that because you're not here. We will say a little bit about that today, but more will be coming. Got a lot of stuff for you guys today. The Chat GPT course for solopreneurs is going to go live Thursday. I'll tell you more about that in a bit. A little update on my book, Laws of Life, and some typos and typesetting issues in the first edition, which will not be called the first edition, just is. But they're going to be fixed. But I'll tell you why it might be cool that you bought your book early. We're going to talk about amending garden soil, filling new raised beds, composting, talk some about AI today. How about AI eliminating 8,000 jobs at IBM, but then IBM turned around and hired 8,000 new people? That's kind of encouraging. We're going to talk about using cross-platform tools with cross-platform battery adapters. What does that mean? Many of you know. We're talking about cordless power tools here: DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee, Ryobi, Bosch, Rigid, whatever you use. But I got to tell you that there's going to be a real advantage here for some of you guys. For me in particular, this is a really good thing. It's something I've known about, but I've never really talked about on the air. I recently mentioned a tool, a set of pruners that uses DeWalt batteries, which works out really well because it's very inexpensive and you already have the batteries if you're a DeWalt guy like me. Somebody wrote me about these adapters and said, hey, there's another thing going on here. And I'm like, yeah, I need to talk about that real quick anyway. We're seeing a complete resurgence of skilled trades and a downfall of the college education system. Who's talked to you about that in the past? We have a story today of a welder getting a job out of not welding school, but high school. So this is an 18-year-old kid. He's a junior, and he's already got an offer for when he graduates as a senior, if he keeps his shit together, of almost $70,000 a year. Then I got an entire new list of colleges downsizing. And then a couple little fun things at the end. One, why did I go back to Facebook? A lot of people have been asking me why I actually post on Facebook again, not just run my live streams there. And I'll tell you, I think it's a good reason. Some things I don't like about Facebook, a lot of things I don't like about Facebook, but in the end, it's where my friends and family are more than any other place. And then I have a huge congrats to throw out. And if you go read the article, one of the best things you'll read today, maybe the best thing you'll read this week or even this month, from Ken Daniels on a report of his trip to the doctor's office with getting lab numbers that, you generally wouldn't be excited about it unless you started where he did only 90 days ago. And a doctor going, wow, that Ozempic must really work great. And Ken going, yeah, there's no Ozempic involved. There's no Ozempic. No. None of your other freaking drugs either, doc. Hey, check this out. It's pretty freaking cool. And that ties into the Facebook thing, because if I wasn't on Facebook, I wouldn't have found it this morning when I was getting ready to do the show. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and hear from our sponsors of the day. Sponsor today, number one today, is Above Phone, where you can get the Above Phone or the Above Book or the Above Tablet or all three. And this is a way you can take your technology back, stop having your device maker, your app maker, your carrier, and your ISP spy on you, collect all your data and sell it to other people. You can do that with Above Phone. If you're worried about the learning curve of moving over from, let's say, a PC to an Above Book, or from a iPhone to an Above Phone, don't worry, because every purchase that you get from Above Phone comes with a free onboarding consultation where they help you learn how to use your new device. Check them out today at Above Phone. And remember, if you're an MSB member, you get a great big old discount of $75 off any phone at abovephone.com. Next up today, John Pugliano with the Wealth Steading Podcast. Guys, John is a great investment manager. He has been a member of our community since about 2010. So he ain't going nowhere. That's like 15 years he's been around. I actually met him in Salt Lake City in 2010. He told me he was launching his new business as a financial liar because he knew that's what I called him. And he said, I'm going to do it different. And then he demonstrated that. He also decided one day, I want to do a podcast about all this stuff. So he asked me for tips and tricks. And they asked me what he should do. And I said, he just should shut up and go do it. Because if he can do all the other stuff he does, he can do a podcast. So he did. And the result was the Wealth Steading Podcast, where you can learn to grow your wealth like you grow a garden. Check it out at wealthsteading.com. With that, let's go ahead and get on into it. Today, I want to start off with, we are launching the Chat GPT course. It's 10 a.m. Thursday, Central Standard Time. And the way it's going to work is there's an email list, and either you're on it or you're not by then anyway. You can still get on the list. There's over 500 people on the list right now. There are 100 positions for the first round of the course. The course is $100. It's going to be a melee. It's going to be a race, like in the movie Rat Race. It's a race. I'm winning, right? Seriously, the way we're doing this, we cannot handle more than 100 students. Tom and I will be kind of refereeing the whole thing and guiding you through it. It's going to start out with a daily brief video by me. Will be dropped into a private Telegram group that you'll get the link for when you sign up for the course. And when you get that video, it'll kind of prime you for the day. Then you'll get your instructions for that day, what to do. And then we all share information, and Tom and I will do our best to help people that are having problems or needing additional guidance and things like that. It's going to be an awesome course. It's 40 days long, and it's really, when you look at it, it's longer than that because we have the weekends off so people can catch up what they're behind on and things like that. But it's going to be awesome. And I've put a ton of work into it, probably 45 days of work. When I originally went to do this, I thought it'd be simple. We'd do like 20 days, and it would just be basic commands. And as I looked at that format, I'm like, no, this isn't going to work. This is not good enough. We need to make this something that by the time you're done with it, if you would have paid somebody to do what you'll do for yourself, it would be tens of thousands of dollars. And it really would. A consultant that would go through this level with you would cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's the course. And I've had some questions. And here's my two biggest questions. Three, actually. One, can I use the free version of ChatGPT? You can, but we don't recommend it. You'll get much better results if you spend the money for a couple months of paid GPT. And once you have it, you probably won't get rid of it. But I would you're spending the money on the course. I would also spend the money on ChatGPT. The other one is, can I use another AI platform like Grok? You can. No one will stop you, but we're not going to help you with a specific platform issue on Grok or, any other AI. This is a GPT course because I've been using it for 2 years and I'm very experienced with it. And your instructor, me, wants to be experienced in what he's instructing you, right, with GPT, the platform. So that's the other question. And so you really should have the paid version. It's GPT specific. And the last one is, but if I don't have a business, well, then you need to think about having a business because this course is for solopreneurs. That's what it's designed for, or small businesses and small companies. And I would tell you, like, if you're a marketing person in your company and you work for somebody else, it'd be really great for you too. But it's up to you if you want to maybe ask your employer to pay for it for you, or just go do it. And then when you're done with it, ask them for a big old raise. That might be even better. All right. So let's get on with that. Just a reminder, 10 a.m. Thursday morning Central Time. I figure that's like 8 a.m. Pacific and 11 a.m. Eastern. So it's not in some weird super early hour for people or whatever. And again, it is going to be just as simple as I will trigger the email program, email this list. Here's a link. Sign up or don't. And I do not expect it to go maybe 15, 20 minutes before it'll be sold out. It should be fun. Anyway, moving on. Real quick update about the book. So I just took this weekend and I went back through it, dropping chapter by chapter into GPT and having it find errors for me. And I found a lot more than I expected. And I'm going to tell you that I think what happened is somewhere along the lines of revision, I got revisions crossed in it. And because there's some typos in there that are very typical Jack typos. They're not typical Jack misses editing typos. They're just typical when I'm typing really fast, they happen. And so, oops. I still have had great feedback on the book. If you get one now, you can get the one with some typesetting issues and those typos. And that won't be around much longer. I've got a guy who's actually going to be on the show in July who is a profession, formats books for self-publishing. He's a libertarian. He likes to format books like this. And he's going to come on and talk about writing and getting professional help and what you can do yourself and what you should get help with. And it's going to be a good show for entrepreneurs who want to write books. So that'll be fun. So just know that there is some stuff in there. You're like, wow, did he miss that? I don't know that I actually did in my head anyway. All right. But it is, the thing was either the book was going to come out or it was going to delay again. And we got to a point where like, no more delays. This has to happen. So here we go. Let's start taking some questions. We're going to start out with like some gardening stuff. Then we're going to move into some AI stuff and some educational stuff. So we got a pretty good variety of stuff from you guys today. This is all from stuff that was emailed to me or I picked up on social media talking to you guys. You want to submit content for a show like this, Jack at thesurvivalpodcast.com is the email. TSPC in the subject line is the way to make sure that we see it. So I have some fairly detailed questions today that I'm going to fold. Of the first three questions, I'm calling them question 1, question 2, and question 2A. The 2A and 2 are from the same guy. The first one says, I recently put new garden beds in. I was wondering what soil amendments I should add. The new bed is about 41 square foot. It's a horseshoe shape, measuring only 27 inches across, so reach is not an issue. The fill is about 2/3 shredded mulch on the bottom and 1/3 soil, which is roughly 10 inches deep. The soil is a combo of soil from my old beds and garden soil in bulk. The old soil had same mulch, lower filler, is now mostly composted, so it's loose soil. I want to grow tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, zucchinis, cabbage, radishes, and carrots. Here's a picture of the bed from the outside. Bro, you didn't send me a picture, but I don't need it to answer this question. The size are all chicken wire cage, 8 to 12 hours of full unshaded sunlight. So when you ask someone, what should I amend my soil with? And you haven't baselined what the soil is deficient in, that actually makes answering the question difficult because, for instance, if your soil was really highly alkaline, you might adjust your pH with sulfur, to move more toward the acid range. And in a small, contained, tall raised bed, you could do that. But the other side of it is if it was really overly acidic, you'd probably want to, maybe use some lime or dolomite and move it more into the neutral range by pushing it toward alkaline. So that's just one example. I don't do a lot with trying to change soils pHs unless it is, fabricated fill in a raised bed. Like trying to change the actual soil pH in the ground is really difficult to do long term. Jake, I swear to God, you are the most pain in the ass question answering person on the asking question. I just answered that. I will not answer it again. Somebody smack Jake. I know it's a virtual smack, but just write slap Jake down there for me, just so I feel better about it. Anyway, you have to know what you're missing. Like, am I going to amend calcium into a soil? Well, maybe, but probably not. But maybe. So the first thing I would say, if you really want to know if you should be doing any true amending, would be to get a soil test done on at least your primary nutrient profile. But the reality is most soil is not deficient in most of the things we think that it is. The plant will show those shortages or insufficiencies, and then you test it and it's very low, so they'll say amend it. But the reality is the plant needs very little of it. It's biology that gets you there. So really good high quality compost, and in a bed that size, a small worm farm is going to provide you plenty of compost and plenty of tea to spray the plants with, and that'll bring you tons of life. I am a huge fan of including integrated crushed biochar into just about everything. But you want to make sure that it is inoculated or it has been composted with compost, and then you're applying it when you're applying the compost, or you're going to make a good compost tea or a good compost extract, and you're going to inoculate it with that, or you're going to inoculate it with something else. Like you can inoculate biochar with human urine. Yeah, that's going to be almost a pure nitrogen inoculation. But if you add something like liquid kelp to the inoculum, then you're going to get a really great micronutrient profile as well. And if you were to do something like human urine, compost tea, and kelp, that would be a fantastic way to integrate things. I know that the idea of pee to some people is really off-putting, so don't do it if you don't want to. But compost is going to always be your number one go-to for making soil better, that and a good mulch on the surface. And I'm going to save my other thoughts on this because the next two questions, 2 and 2A, kind of go in the same direction here. Question 2, is filling raised garden beds in this order acceptable? Fabric, cloth, rotten and decomposing logs, wood chips, buckthorn, and lily pads, inoculated biochar, followed by dirt. I'm going to stop there in this question and say everything was fine up until you said biochar and then dirt. Because what you're talking about doing, it sounds like it's putting a layer of biochar and then whatever primary soil mixture or compost mixture you're going to be planting into on top of that. So you got dirt here and biochar down here. That is not the way you want to do things. You want biochar in the soil profile itself. So I would mix it into your soil and your compost. And again, as I just covered, you want it to be inoculated. Everything else, as far as that kind of lasagna layer method into your bed, that's fantastic. That's going to get, and that along with the first question, right? The guy said that they had a bunch of shredded wood chips on the bottom. Kind of both of these guys are doing a lasagna pseudo-hugelculture thing here. And what that's going to do is give you a tremendous amount of fungal hit in your soil. Though if you're that deep, that fungal kit can only be so much from those wood chips, which is why a good layered mulch on top is excellent as well. The neighbors and I are going to do a shared garden. They want to do raised beds. We're in Minnesota. The garden is on a slight slope, gets full sun 9 to 6. We have water to the garden. We're trying to determine the best height for the raised beds and then the proper ratio for filling them. If 2 foot high, I do 6 inches of logs, 6 inches of chips, 1 inch of biochar, 6 to 10 inches of dirt. Question mark. So that sounds like a statement, but he's actually asking a question. Or just not all together. We have a skid loader and can have local place mixed dirt and sand or other things together in their pulverizer. Okay. Just be careful that the material you're getting, if you're buying it in, does not have persistent herbicides or something like that in it. So you might want to go get a sample of this. Now, this sounds like, this time of year, you probably want to get moving and get this done. But this would probably be worth doing is whatever soil mix you're going to purchase from them, go get like a bucket of it and plant some green beans in it. And if they grow like shit, it's got persistent herbicides. So don't use it. All right, get something else. Assuming it's going to be good, you're fine up till now. Now, the same person asked the following question. I didn't even look at the name, and I knew when I saw the same materials being used, right? What ratio of lily pads to chopped buckthorn trees should I use for making compost? I'm in Minnesota, have acres of buckthorn and a pond overgrowing with lily pads. I have a small 3-inch wood chipper that has a leaf hopper also. Buckthorn is smallest and most will fit through the chipper. Is the wet wood and leaves enough for compost, or should I add lily pads in removing? I'm removing already. Trying to figure out a ratio and know when it's achieved the right ratio. I'll be throwing some wet raw biochar into the chipper to mix into the pile. Be careful with that. But you're selling me on something here, and that is if I'm putting actual trees and leaves and branches through a chipper and I'm going to immediately compost it, adding small amounts of biochar as you go and incorporating it in there will probably work without gumming up your freaking shredder, because you have multiple materials instead of a single uniform material in there. Because if biochar is the wrong wetness, when you put it into a chipper shredder, it makes oily, gunky tar that will clog up your shredder bad enough that even though it works when you get it right, I'm probably never doing it again myself. but I might try it that way. It would be a lot more forgiving if you were pushing wood chips and things through with it. And, for every, about 10% by volume, like for every big giant bucket, you're using a small container of biochar kind of going in with it. That might work really well. As far as your ratios, greens to browns, you want somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20% greens, 10 to 20% nitrogen. So in this case, your greens are your leaves and your lily pads, right? And it depends on, what kind of composting are you going to do? How patient are you going to be? If you're going to make a bioreactor, what you just said works fine. Like, throw as much lily pads in there as you want. It can be more than you would ideally have, but it's going to be fine. It can be less than you would ideally have, and it's going to be fine. I would always, if you have aquatic vegetation that you're removing from your pond anyway, and your composting included, because it's going to have certain elements in it, certain nutrients in it that are going to be lacking in other sources. Lily pads or water hyacinth or azolla or any of that stuff is not going to have the kind of mineral profile that something like kelp does, because it's not in the ocean with all those oceanic minerals. But it's still got a lot of mineral diversity that's sorely lacking. It also is going to have certain bacteria and fungi, microorganisms associated with it that may be lacking in your terrestrial plants that will do fine terrestrially as well. They just need a chance to get going, and this would be a great way to do it. So if you are doing a static pile compost, whether it's a bioreactor or a continuous add, even like you're going to do, this deep today and you're going to keep adding till it's full and then just let it go for a year, do whatever you want with that material, you're going to be fine. If you are going to do a high turn compost, a Jeff Lawton, Billy Bond style compost, 18 to 28 days, depending on exactly how you turn it and when you turn it, then you are going to need to be a little bit more concerned about your nitrogen carbon ratios. But the thing about static pile is it's incredibly forgiving, and it doesn't really matter if you get a big hit on your thermal cycle or not. It's okay. I have students all the time in the bioreactor course, so I only got up to 130 degrees, and yours got up to 165 degrees. It doesn't matter. It's going to be fine. You have to keep it moist. You have to keep it aerated. And that's done with the columns and the way the sides are handled. And it's done with daily irrigation. Unless it poured rain that night, you need to have irrigation on some sort of automated or semi-automatic or some sort of discipline that you got to keep it wet. And again, continuous add, there's nothing wrong with. Somebody on Facebook recently posted a picture of their bioreactor, and they said they just basically, it went down to 1/3 of volume. That's typical. And they had another bunch of compostables, and they just threw it on top of it. Is that okay? So the only thing wrong with this post is you didn't include a picture of what it looked like after you were done. No, I have no problem with it. Now, you're going to have that 1/3 of compost at the bottom ready for use long before you can use what's on top of it. But if you have the time and the patience, it's only going to get better. So I think one of the biggest things that I try to teach people about compost is you're probably going to be okay no matter what you do, right? You probably are going to be okay no matter what you do, especially with static pile methods. Static pile methods, as long as you have some way to make sure there's good air exchange, even when you have some things happen that you'd prefer not, you get a little anaerobic in the beginning or whatever. I don't care what Elaine Ingham says. Within a year, it's a non-issue. It's a non-issue. And you guys are still doing your high turn compost, okay? If you have high turn compost that you're doing and it's coming out well at the end, it looks good, smells good, whatever, I still wouldn't use it. I would put it somewhere where it has good airflow. You take care of it. A basically one column bioreactor design for an aging reactor, like I've had on some of my videos, is a good place to store it and keep it wet and keep it covered and don't let it dry out and give it at least another month to age. It is like fine wine. The longer it ages, the better it really does get. All right, so let's move on from there. Let's talk about AI, which seems totally different from what we were just talking about, and it is. And that's the kind of shows I like. I like to do shows like this once in a while where we bounce around with all kinds of topics. So let me pull up the article for you guys. So IBM recently laid off about 8,000 people. The way this went down is in 2023, they laid off 8,000 people, mainly in human resources. So a lot of the HR Karens got laid off. They aim to replace routine HR tasks with AI, and it's a product called Ask HR that eliminated 8,000 jobs. That's a lot of money. And then they automated 94% of HR inquiries. So these are all, people asking questions. How do I change this in my 401k? How do I add a dependent to my health insurance? All of the stuff that HR people deal with, basically, instead of telling you did something wrong, but actually trying to help you on a daily basis. All those inquiries that come in, and it comes in the size of IBM, there's a lot of that, right? And AI, though, lacked empathy and complex judgment. So if all the person wanted was a simple answer, it could do that. They actually had to backfill some HR positions to have, I'm not getting an answer from this robot thing. I need a real person type escalation. So IBM began rehiring people, and they ended up laying off and then rehiring about the same number of people. About 8,000 people out the door, about 8,000 people back in the door. Thing is, most of the new hires, the way this is being spun is, AI failed. They didn't have empathy, and they didn't think and hire reasons. So no. That turned out the majority of the HR Karens were not necessary. It was brain dead work. It was work that was easily automated. So what that did, though, is it improved productivity for IBM so much that they had this surplus capital that they were able to reinvest it in their core business. And most of the new hires were in their core business, like sales and marketing and product development. So AI took jobs, but enabled the company to grow its workforce back to where it was before the jobs went away. So this is an example of a lot of these new employees now are using AI. So AI has given what it has taken. It has created new opportunities for new jobs by taking jobs that are kind of brain dead, mundane, easily automated jobs. Rehired roles focus mostly on software, marketing, and sales. So again, product development, marketing the product, and closing the deal. Those are things that AI is not really good at by itself yet. These areas need creativity, people skills, and they need nuance. And I want to give you kind of a little bit of a lesson right now on what selling is and what it isn't. Imagine you go for a sales job, and during you're sitting in the sales job, and they do the old thing. They pull up a stapler and they say, well, if you're a good salesperson, sell me this stapler. And most people in that position would look at that stapler and they would be like, oh, let me tell you about this stapler. It never snags your paper. It does this and it does that. And it's sleekly designed and it works efficiently every time. And it uses standard staples that are, available anywhere. Whatever it is that they can come up with on the fly. They might even sound really good at it. They might sound like, hey, this guy's been selling his whole life. That person's not getting the fucking job unless everybody in that interview does the same thing and it gets zeroed out against each other. No, you know who's going to get that job? Oh, sell you the stapler? Maybe later. Just, first of all, what kind of staplers do you use here? What do you like about the staplers that you have right now? What don't you like about the staplers that you have right now? If I could do something for you when it comes to your staplers and the way they impact your workforce, what would it be? I know it seems like a small thing, but this is something that gets used every day. People are, printing out documents, attaching them to each other. This is a problem that you're dealing with right now. Doesn't even matter how the guy answers the questions. It just matters that you ask the questions and that you listen and you have a discussion with them. This is how you sell. This is how you sell. You have a conversation with people. AI can't do it that way yet. Doesn't know how. You have to. One of the things you'll learn in the course, if you take it, is you have to rein in some of the salesy language when you're doing marketing pieces with GPT. The way you sell something, the way you get a product into a customer's hands, where they're willing to part with it, is to understand them. And to understand them, you basically interview them. So if you are ever in a job interview and somebody says, sell me the stapler, sell me this pen, sell me this challenge coin, whatever it is, right? Whenever that happens, sell me this little stainless steel bowl. That's what you do. You start asking them questions about the product they currently use, what they like about it, and what they dislike about it. You'll get the job. And about 1 in probably 20 salespeople that I've interviewed knew that when I interviewed them. They all knew it when they left, if they kept their job long enough to get that level of mentorship. But anyway, only a very small portion were HR roles they rehired. And what the shift really did is it freed up freed up capital for business critical functions, which I think is something you're going to see a lot of. And that doesn't mean that everything's going to be super fantastic, califragilistic, expialidocious for everybody, because I remember when computers took over and fax machines came and the typing pools went away, right? I'm that old. I remember that all happening. And, not needing a whole bunch of people sitting in an office all day just typing and using carbon paper to make multiple copies of something that was dictated by a boss to his secretary. Like that all just went away. And not all of the people that were in the typing pool were capable of adapting to word processors. So there's as many jobs or more jobs per capita today that involve a keyboard, but there's almost no jobs as a typist anymore. You see how that works? People do their own typing. Once we got people to the point where everybody had a computer on their desk, nobody's dictating shit to anybody anymore unless you're a real super bigwig and you're doing it from your private jet over the phone. You're probably doing your own data entry. Like a lot of people that didn't used to do typing are now doing typing. So by spreading out the tool, the specialist in the tool, the typist, lost their job and they needed to be adaptable in some way. That's coming hard, guys. This is going to repeat itself over and over and over again. Sure, there's plenty of jobs, but are you qualified for the job that they're hiring for? That's something you're going to have to start looking at a little bit tighter going forward. Now, just for the fun of it, right in the middle of this, I want to tell you about something that has nothing to do with AI at all. I want to talk to you about power tools, and specifically cordless power tools. And there's a link in today's show notes for you, so you can just find what I'm talking about. They make them for just about every cross-platform. Maybe this link isn't the best one. I might make a new link because it only has a few. But what you want to do then is put in something like cross-platform battery adapter. Let's say that you were using Makita and Milwaukee. So then I'm going to limit it, or Makita and DeWalt. I'm going to limit it to just that. And that'll get me a better thing. So here we have, these are batteries that'll work in a DeWalt tool that take a Makita battery. Yeah. And then you could get them in the exact opposite. So it'd be an adapter that works in a DeWalt tool, that works in a Makita tool that takes the DeWalt battery. Why would you want to do such a thing? Well, I'll tell you why. Because inevitably, you're going to want a power tool that is not made by the company that you've settled on the platform for. You're going to want, let's say, a really good electric chainsaw, and I don't know what platform doesn't have one yet, but let's say they don't, and DeWalt has a really great one. But you're on, I don't know, Makita or Ryobi or Bosch or somebody that doesn't have one yet, especially in the compact kind of perfect form for this that DeWalt does. So you're like, I'm willing to buy the DeWalt tool, but then I got to buy the DeWalt batteries and DeWalt chargers. And I'm not like Jack, I'm not a DeWalt guy. I'm a Makita guy. I'm a Ryobi guy. I'm a Rigid guy, whatever it is. Well, you get your battery adapter and you put it on that new tool and you just leave it there. And now you have one battery platform, but then you can go cross-platform with your tools. And this can be really useful. Here's an example. I own, now they really weren't making these back when I bought it, but I'm going to check and see today. Now, the brand I'm going to give you is kind of a low-end brand. So maybe nobody makes anything for it, but I'll check later. It's called Porter Cable. And the reason I went with Porter Cable is I needed 2 brad nailers. I wanted like a real the super fine gauge, and I wanted a little bit bigger one. And Porter Cable makes them for about $160, and DeWalt makes them for almost $400. This is not something I was going to use a lot of. There was just some little projects I was going to do here and there with them, and it was nice to have them. So for the price of 2 from Porter Cable, I could have gotten almost one of the DeWalt ones. And again, if this was a tool I was going to use every day, or if we were going more in heavy duty, like I have a DeWalt cordless framing nailer, and I love it. And it paid for itself on the first project because of how much faster we did it and how many less damn screws I used. Because one of the things you find when you're by yourself and you're trying to do things, a lot of times instead of nails, you'll use screws, because you can hold things and just Rambo them in. With a nail gun, you can hold them in. By the way, those brad nailers, as long as the brads are long enough, even if they won't hold, they're great for like putting up like a brace, pop it on with the brad nailer, and then either use real nails or use screws, wood screws, to hold it together. Just a little thing there. But being able to go outside of your platform and stick to your primary battery platform is fantastic. So it's just something that I would like to put out there for you. Jake is actually making a contribution now, like a tack weld. It's exactly like a tack weld. For those of you that don't know what that is, that's when you're going to put a good weld on something, but you do a little quick tack weld first to hold the material in place, and then you go ahead and lay down your bead or whatever it is you're going to do. All right, so let's keep moving. And it's funny that Jake mentioned welding, because, and somehow I think I lost the article, but I can re-pull it back up out of the show notes for you. This is an Internet Archive article if you go to look for it yourself, because it's on Wall Street Journal behind a paywall. But this article is about a high school junior with a $70,000 a year job offer. It ends up actually being something like $67,000 or $68,000 a year. And it's actually, to me, it's a pretty fantastic story. We have high school juniors, means they're not even going to be available until next year, right? That have contingency offers. Basically, complete the program. We see what you are. We like what you are. We see where you're at. We like all of it. Don't screw it up. Stay in school for one more year, finish the program, and when you walk out the door, here's a job offer for almost $70,000 a year. This is particularly in the Philadelphia area. I'm going to tell you, if you're a high school graduate in Philadelphia coming out of high school with almost a $70,000 a year job, you're doing pretty damn good. Because this is the other thing. People say, it's not that great as a welder. First job, right? You're going to be 18-ish years old, maybe 19, depending on when you started school. And you're walking into a $70K job out of school. I mean, I know $70K isn't what it used to be. But when I got out of high school, this would have been like walking into, let's say, a $40K job. Maybe $35 to $40K. And I knew a lot of grown-ass adults not making that in the little small coal town I was from. That is a good way to start a career. This guy, Noah, says $70K is more than my salary out of school in 2021 as an electrical engineer. Isn't that interesting? The reason this is happening, though, is companies are facing skilled labor shortages as boomers and probably older Gen Xers are retiring or deciding that this work like this is physically demanding. And there's a lot of people, as they get older, just decide, I'm not going to retire yet, but I have enough skills now. I don't have to do this anymore. And they're going on to do other things. And there is like, with it, like you go below Gen X, you go younger than Gen X, there is a massive shortage of any sort of skilled trades. I'm not saying there's no Gen Zs or younger millennials that can work on cars or do welding or do pipe fitting or do electrical installations and stuff like that. I'm not saying there's none. I'm saying there's a drastic shortage versus the need. There's way more jobs than there are people with the skill set. So now these really young Gen Zs just coming out of school, they're walking into work. And this has happened as smart high schools across the country reinstated various VOTEC programs. This used to be a big thing. When I was in school, I would say about 25% of the people in my high school were in a VOTEC program in high school. And basically that program was their freshman year, we were all the same. We all had to take Algebra 1 and stuff like that. And but once they got from their sophomore year on, they did half the school year at the main school campus and half the school year at the VOTEC campus. And so there was enough room for everybody. They flip-flopped. And we had, auto body. We had electronic repair, all types of things like that. And then this was all in addition to like industrial arts that were like regular college classes or regular high school classes, like wood shop and metal shop. We had all that too, at the kind of the base entry level. This is all coming back, and it needs to. Students in these programs are learning things like welding, plumbing, HVAC, right? Some of these kids are coming out of high school with freaking HVAC certification. The employers are recruiting directly from the high schools, because the beauty of doing this, if you're an employer, you would think, I'd rather have like really skilled people who've been around a while. No, they want more money, first of all. But the other side is, if you are a big enough shop to be bringing a certain number of people in every year, you have plenty of experience. And if you hire someone out of the school where they've learned their fundamentals by the book, then you put them with your experienced tradesman who trains them in your company way, and they already have by the book skills. By the time that young apprentice is kind of in their second year, the only way that they know to do things is your way. I much preferred, when I was in telecom, to have them give me a guy and say, this guy didn't know anything, but he'll show up for work. And he's got a clean record. He's not going to cause problems or starts fights, and he'll work hard, than somebody that worked for a competitor. Because when I brought them in, they didn't know anything, and they knew they didn't know anything. And it's like, start out with your color codes, learn your color codes. This is how you read a blueprint. This is how we do suspension. This is how we bundle cable. And it was not, but over at this place, we do it. I don't give a shit. Right? My QA guy works for the same company I do, and when we're done with the shop, he's going to come in and QA it to our standard. I don't give a shit what your QA standard is over there. It doesn't matter to me. You understand that, right? You have to have that conversation. And generally, in about 2 to 3 weeks, you could have a guy off the street that didn't know anything. He's basically capable of, you could leave a job for 4 hours and leave him in charge if he learned and listened. And he could run the job for 4 hours. You come back and wrap things up at the end of the day, because you're dealing with multiple crews. So this is a good deal for everybody. They even have programs now called Heavy Metal Summer and other things like that help funnel students into trades. National events are coming up too, like Skills USA. Hundreds of hiring companies are attending these events, excited to talk to young people that want to go down these trade paths. Some jobs like submarine welding, and no, that is not welding submarine under the water. That's like part of the construction. $75K a year straight out of high school. Employers are now offering part-time work and internship for 16 to 17-year-olds. So as that guy is finishing up his school, he can work part-time as he gets toward the end of his school career, and he's fully rolling by the time he hits the ground. And there's a big focus across the board, and this is part of the big, beautiful bill that we talked about last week. We're coming off of this college for all nonsense that we've been on for almost 50 years. This really started in earnest in the 1970s. By 1975, the message of every child should go to college because an education is priceless was pretty uniform, and it hasn't had anything interrupted until about now. That's 50 years of that bullshit. And what it did is it ruined the value of a college degree. Nobody gives a shit that you have a college degree anymore. I'm sorry. Now, if you have an advanced engineering degree from MIT, that's a different thing. That's not what I'm talking about. But it used to be, if you go back, like when I was in high school, 1980s, and a guy had a degree in just business administration, he could get a freaking job. Now, he might have to move somewhere. If he was from a small town like mine, there weren't a lot of places to go work with that degree. But if you had that degree and you were willing to go to Philly or Allentown or Pittsburgh, but you want to stay in Pennsylvania, you're willing to go to those places, or down to DC or Baltimore or out over to Jersey, maybe not even go to New York City, but go, a little bit upstate, kind of like Poughkeepsie, just north of the city or whatever. There were jobs everywhere for you. That guy's got a degree in business management or business administration or whatever. Now nobody gives a shit. Oh, that's nice. What school did you go to? Joe Blow University? Yeah, we don't give a shit. You went to Harvard, you probably have a network you're tied into, or Yale, you got a network you've tied into now, but not everybody's going to go to those schools. Besides, all they're doing is turning people into a bunch of woke idiots now. Well, eventually you have to pay the bill. And this actually ties in, believe it or not, this is a Bitcoin angle. Like everything economic has a Bitcoin angle now. And the way it ties into that is the fiat monetary system worked. I know you think it didn't because everybody says it didn't, but how do you pay for your house, right? How do you pay for your house right now? With dollars? Okay. If you're my age, you're in your 50s and you've been working for more than 30 years, how have you been paid for 30 years? How have you paid all your bills for 30 years? It worked for a time, and now it's unraveling. And as it worked for a time, it enabled things. Without fiat, you don't have a situation where high schools are bragging that 84% of our students go on to college. What the hell is that? How can you have 80? Something's valuable because it's rare, is an easy way to understand this. And when I'm looking at the fact that if I want a degreed professional in this job and I have 80 job applications and 10 of them have degrees, it's unique inside that 80-person pool. Like I'm now like, well, there's something valuable. When they all have it, I mean, I've told this story before, but I'm going back almost 30 years now. Before I started the podcast with Neil and I, we had this contracting firm. We did contractual recruiting, and we had people all over the world. And I met a guy, and this was outside of our scope. They were just hiring CSRs. We had all the infrastructure back end, ability to run payroll and all. And I'm like, we could put 20, 30 guys in seats this week for you if you really wanted it. What do you need? And the guy's like, he listed, communication skills, keyboarding, speed, accuracy, good communication, all of this shit. And it's like, yeah, okay, no problem. And at least a BA. Why? Why? This is answering the phone and talking to customers. You could train somebody that's, smarter than a spider monkey how to do this in like 2 weeks. Why do you care if they have a degree? He goes, well, at this point, there's so many people with degrees. Why not ask for it? And at least we know that whatever they start, they can complete. That's why I've been right there. That was the moment my last faith in the university system died. Like I just realized at that point, I'm talking to this guy and I can't get through to him either. I'm like, this sounds ridiculous. Like, I'm like, is this your, he goes, yeah. I'm a C-level officer in the company. This is my policy. I don't have to go get it approved to change it. I could change it if I wanted to. Oh, look, I don't think we're going to be able to help you because I'm not even going to waste my time trying to hire people into a job that a high school kid could do and tell them I need a college degree. So I'm sorry. This whole thing, like the fiat system, it's now unraveling. It's now, and it has to be addressed. And now there's a shortage. And this is where I said it has a Bitcoin tie. The key to the fiat thinking is if you have more money, you'll have more stuff. Now, I don't mean you. Yes, if Jake Robinson has more money, then Jake Robinson will probably have more stuff. That is the case. If we all decided we're going to have the giant Jake Robinson fund and everybody listening to this was going to send Jake Robinson $10 a week and he got money every week like that, it was free, he would go spend it on stuff. That's not what I mean. I mean that if a society has more money, the society will have more stuff. Doesn't work that way. You can't create production with dollars. They have to be channeled, they have to have value, and they have to hold value. When you can print money, you can create the illusion of abundance without actual abundance. And you can do it for a time by importing all your shit. Until all the developing markets that you're importing from begin to develop to the point where it's not so cheap anymore. And you went so far with it that like critical things that you really need in a time of like national emergency or defense, you can't even produce anymore. And you start to realize, hey, this is really fucked up. I got to do something about it. Well, I know, we'll just print more money. Oh, shit, that didn't work. That's how degrees got produced as well. They made so much money available to so many people on such retarded, ridiculous terms that we have a glut of people with degrees. But just because they have degrees doesn't mean they can do anything. All we've actually done is we've created people with a freaking mental illness that believe, oh, I have a degree in communications, I'm entitled to at least $70,000 a year. No, the kid that can stick two pieces of fucking metal together, he's entitled to 70 grand a year. You're entitled to schlep coffee until you figure out something to do with yourself. That reality is hitting home. And as Tom mentioned it, the population cliff, right? We have a declining population at this point. And what we actually have looks like it's not declining that much yet. Because since old people are living to be older people than typical, the base number staying the same, but we have a point where people get to where if they can, they just quit working. We don't have the replacement bodies in. So if you have, let's say, 1 million people retire in a year, but nobody dies out of your sample group, right? But only 500,000 people enter the workforce, you have a problem. And then when you're like, well, we need to fix this problem, we need to get more aggressive with hiring more people, kick people off welfare, make them get a job, whatever. Okay, great. But if they don't know how to do what needs to be done, you've got a problem. AI is not going to be putting pipes together in new buildings and retrofits anytime soon. It's not going to be running data cable. It's not going to be running electrical line. Even if we develop some level of AI that makes welding faster and easier where people with less skill can do it, it is still not going to be all done by AI. If you have the same two panels that come through on an automated lane, we can do that right now. We don't need AI for that's basic robotics. But when you're like, okay, this oil rig fucking broke and your roughneck is not working now and he's getting paid to not work and you're losing money paying him and you need the freaking thing put back together, you need somebody who can look at it and not just do a weld, but figure out why it broke to put it back together in a way that's not going to just break again, right? That your pump arm is cracked or something. You need it fixed now. Now, not later, now. And you need a person that can do it. And there's a shortage of those people. There's a distinct shortage of those people. Heavy equipment operation, that's not going to be done by AI anytime soon. When you're trying, I mean, I saw guys, and we used to do these derbies at Ditch Witch, where we'd have these guys come in and all these operators would come in and compete in these like heavy equipment games and do shit like weld a freaking teaspoon on the tooth of an excavator, take a 5-gallon bucket full of sand, push an egg into it till you could just barely see the tip and say, take the egg out of the sand. And some of the guys could do it. Scoop an egg out of the sand without breaking it with an excavator. Why would you want that level of ability? Well, so you can dig around things like electrical lines without shutting down Texas Motor Speedway like one of my guys did once. That's the real. We shut down Texas Motor Speedway and half of Saginaw, Texas with one big kaboom. Fortunately, nobody got hurt, though we did blow a chunk about the size of a softball out of a backhoe bucket. We got no trouble for that one because the electrical company said it was clear to dig there and they were wrong. So you're not going to have AI doing those things yet. You're not going to have AI removing and replacing a starter on your car because your car is different than all the other cars. And sometimes even the same model, there's different problems like, oh, this bolt won't come out. Oh, if they can make an AI that will fix a broken bolt inside a housing, then we got something, right? Until we can do that, you're going to have some guy like, if you ever see somebody, by the way, with a tap going into a broken bolt, don't speak to them. Don't speak to them. Don't speak to them. Don't speak to them. Go away. Leave them alone. Once that comes out, you can talk to them. Don't talk to them while they're trying to get it out, or using a reverse drill bit to extract a broken screw, something like that. Just get away, right? These jobs, these skill sets, these abilities, right? Certain things with agriculture and farming as well. The truck driver may get replaced on an over-the-road thing, but you know who's probably not going to get replaced? The driver who does the short hauls. I think you might even see autonomous vehicles working in the trucking industry this way. The long haul portion is done autonomously, and then a guy gets in the truck at a certain point when you're dealing with all like really hairy shit in town with a giant truck. I don't want a semi rolling past me while I'm running a jackhammer on the side of the road in downtown Dallas. I really don't want that. I think there's just a lot of this is all coming back. On top of it, the entire situation that we're dealing with right now in the college campuses is way worse than even I thought it would be right now. There's a new article out right now, and it is not just about Penn State. Penn State is closing 7 campuses in 2027 due to financial and demographic issues. So these are not Penn State College University, right? This is, Penn State Schuylkill is being closed. That's the one that a lot of people from my high school went to. These are campuses that, in their heyday had 1,500 to 10,000 students, depending on which one we're talking about. They have all shrunk to the point where Penn State says it's not worth keeping this open anymore. You see, that's one of the things I don't think people get. A lot of these big schools like Penn State, well, Penn State what? Here in Texas, we have University of Texas. It's one of our most famous public universities. But there's like 40,000 students enrolled, or were. I haven't checked the numbers anytime recently, but UTA, University of Texas at Arlington, when my son went there, 40,000 students across all 4 levels, freshman through senior. 40,000 students in a branch campus. So a lot of these big schools have a lot of big branch campuses, and that's where they're closing first. And these branch campuses have been a great way to go because, number one, you could do your first 2 years there and transfer to the main campus and probably get in. But even if you didn't, your degree says University of Pennsylvania, University of Texas. It carries the same weight, even if it's a branch campus. So those closed. Bacone College was forced into Chapter 7 bankruptcy and will liquidate its assets, so it's just gone. Bastyr University is selling its campus but says it's not closing. Okay, I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but they're selling their campus, but they're not closing. Harvard is allocating $250 million to offset lost federal research funding. There's where we're going to see this go. They're going to try to blame Trump for this, even though this is an incredibly long-term trend here that we're dealing with right now. And it's been going on a long time, long before Trump did anything, but they're going to try to blame Trump. But, Harvard's allocating $250 million of its own money. Oh, poor Harvard. They have to spend their own money on their own shit. What a surprise. That's $250 million that's not going to Harvard that you paid for, by the way. NIH cuts in early 2025 eliminated over 715 grants totaling $815 million that would have gone to these colleges for all this research, like what happens when you give cocaine to a hamster. And no, I'm not making that up. Major universities are facing steep research funding losses. University of Virginia lost $85 million alone in those grants. This will continue. It will only get worse. It is a combination of things. It is a realization that as a country, we can't keep funding this bullshit. Of course, they tell us how important all this research is to, like, cancer. And then when you turn around and ask the person that says that, so how many cancers have been cured by this research? They get really angry and they yell because they know what the answer is fucking 0. But AI is going to cure all the cancers. Then what do we need research from these universities for? Right? Because who runs their university research grants? As far as what you do once you get the money. Well, Pfizer and Moderna and all these giant, and all Purdue and all these giant companies, that's who runs all this research. So they don't want to cure anything. They want to treat things, and they take our money, they develop these drugs, they end up putting patents on the drugs that we paid for, and that way they can protect themselves from us getting the drugs affordably, even though the drugs don't cure anything and generally cause more problems than they solve. We're coming to that realization too. All of this is converging. What you have is a mass convergence right now of fantasy versus fucking reality. That's what's happening. Like, there was this fanciful belief that if we just got everybody went to college, everybody would be rich, everybody would have a good job, right? Nobody would ever have to like scrape gum off of shit again or clean shitters or vacuum. Like, but somebody has to do that. It's fine. Immigrants will do it. That was all fantasy thinking because there's so many jobs that, yes, kind of suck. But here's the purpose of a suck job so that anybody can get a job that wants a job and anybody can develop a work, like a profile that says, hey, this person can hold a job so that they can get a little bit better of a job and get a little bit better of a job, and a little bit better of a job. You shouldn't still be working at fucking McDonald's when you're 35, unless you're at least a manager and you're actually trying to become a franchise owner. Okay, I'll give you that. I would do something else with your time and talent, but I know one person from this community that became a multimillionaire opening, running, and managing, and then expanding McDonald's franchises. So it can be a very good path to wealth, right? But you shouldn't be working there like asking if somebody wants fries with that when you're 35 and crying that you should make, $18 an hour or whatever bullshit numbers in your head because you work so hard. That job should be an entry-level job for entry-level people that eventually either move into management in that type of job or go do something else. And that way there's a stair step. And we should be telling young people, you know what? When you get out of school, if somebody offers you a job, take it. Now, somebody offers you 3 different people offer you jobs, take the best one by all means. But if you get one offer and that's all you have, it doesn't matter what it is. Scrubbing shitters, driving a garbage truck, changing tires. There is nobility in work. This is the last piece that has to come together. All the other pieces are in place now. We have to start teaching young people that there is nobility in hard work again. And that where you start is not where you end. And you never start where you end. And this fantasy they have that I'm going to go to school and I'm going to get a degree in bullshit studies and then somebody's going to rain dollars down on me when I get out isn't real. Not only isn't it real, it was never real. It's not what the boomers had. It's not what the Xers had. It's not what the silent had. Because that's the big problem we have. We have a lot of the younger millennials and Zs right now. They actually believe that that's how it was. Like when you graduated in 1992 with a degree in communications, that you had 10 job offers in front of you and they were all good and they had great career. No. We all had bullshit, shitty jobs at some point in our lives. And no, you can't afford the things that you want when you have a job like that. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to learn at that point. And you do what you have to do. When I was in my early 20s, right out of the Army, I had a roommate. Son of a bitch. That helped us. We cut the electric bill in half for each of us. We cut the rent in half for each of us. A 2-bedroom apartment generally doesn't cost that much more than a 1-bedroom apartment. Far less than two. It costs far less than 2 separate 1-bedroom apartments. So that worked. And so we shared a place. Was it the best living arrangement I've ever had in my life? No. No one really wants a roommate unless you're really bored and have no friends. But it works itself out. You have your own space, and then you have common space, like college dorms. College kids, you should be used to it by then. And you do what you have to do, and you develop your career, and you develop your value, and then you move on to better things. We're coming back to that because we have to, because it's the only fucking reality that there is. There was no way to print money and give away degrees and have those two things converge into magical prosperity. Somebody has to weld the metal together. Someone has to fit the wood together to make the custom cabinet. Someone has to be able to pour the concrete that you build the house on in a way that the foundation doesn't fall apart. Oh, by the way, isn't it interesting? Like you can look at houses now that are 100 years old and the foundation ain't moved. And you look at anything built after about 1980 and the foundations are fucked up. Why is that? Maybe it's a combination of cheaper housing foundation. How cheap can we put the slab down? But maybe it's also the lack of real skill in the pouring of the slab. Because if you go back to like the 1960s, if you had talked to a guy and said, what do you do for a living? He would have said, I pour foundations for houses. He would have been pretty proud about it. He'd have been pretty proud that that's his job. And when you said, really, does it pay good? He'd been like, yeah, it does, especially when I get overtime, which is most of the year. Yep. And you went to his house, you probably would have seen a really nice house, probably 3 or 4 kids bouncing around, a pretty wife who didn't work. by the way. I'm just saying. And so that guy saw that job as something that was worth doing, that paid him well, that let him go home with his kids every night, give them what they wanted, and he wanted to be good at it. He wanted to be so good at it that no one would ever let him go, and even if he had to go somewhere else, that somebody wanted him wherever he went. We lost that. So now we have, we have immigrants for that. Oh, okay. And that's why, I mean, if you do, you can, if you want to see this, there's some accounts you can follow of like home inspectors, and they do walkthroughs of brand new houses before they're just roughed in, and they're like showing shit that you can't believe. He's like, this is a $500,000 new build, and like the roof rafters have a 1/4 inch space where they're supposed to be coming together in a gable or something like that. This is the result of turning our back on the value of labor, right? For all the talk the Marxists do about labor, none of them actually want to do anything, right? What they see as labor is you poured the coffee, right? They don't see labor as the guy that built the fucking machine that made the coffee. They don't see labor as the guy that ran the data cables that run the network that makes the automated, super badass $20,000 coffee machine work. Or the guy that ran the pipes that takes their shit away when they take their 15-minute crap break that wasn't on the schedule. They don't see that as labor. They see what they do as labor, which is existence, being there. It's like people, that's why they'll buy stupid shit like teachers work so hard. No, they don't. No, they don't. They do deal with a lot of problems with the kids, but that is part of the same problem we're talking about, isn't it? Right? Entitlement. It isn't going to get better easily, but it's going to get better. And there's going to be a lot of pain along the way as it gets better. That's just something to know. All right. I want to move on to a couple like just social topics or something here. I know this is so serious, but I've gotten a lot of questions over the past few months, especially. What's up with you being back on Facebook? Not anybody like you liar or being like, if I get something like that, I just delete it. I don't give a shit. You're certainly not somebody that really follows me anyway. I don't really care. But just kind of like, what's up? Like you said, you wouldn't do this. I'll tell you a big part of it is that my grandchildren are hitting ages where their activities are starting to really be fruitful. My granddaughter is placing either higher, in some cases winning all around gymnastics competitions. Her softball team, just with the champions for their little league at their age level. My grandson's team, which is like high level competitive preparatory league, they just won the championship. He's having games where he's throwing 10, 11 KOs as a pitcher, and like the whole family's there. And this is where everybody shares what's going on. And then when it comes down to it, most of the people that I really know in the TSP community, they're not on X. They're not on X and they're not on Nostr, which is where I really wish everybody was. They're not there. They're on Facebook. Like, I do have a lot of people that listen to the show on X, but nowhere near as many as on Facebook. And when it comes to like people who I actually have met in person, shook hands with, pressed palms, maybe had a meal with, maybe drank a beer with, maybe spent time with at an event, whether mine or somebody else's, they're all on Facebook. And they're all sharing the meaningful things in their life there, right? And since that's the case, I miss those people. I don't miss Facebook. I think Facebook is a fucking train wreck. It is a socialist, freaking fascist shithole that is pretending to be less of a censorship fascist shithole right now because it hurt them so bad when they did. And that's good for now. It will come back. I guarantee you, like the next election cycle or the next emergency, they'll do all this bullshit again. But it's where the people are. So as long as, I'm just not going to worry about what I say there. And if they want to ban me, they ban me. That's the way I look at it. I'm just going to go, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But yeah, I'm there. And there is another side to Facebook that makes it valuable. And that is that there's groups for everything. There's groups for everything where you can get answers about everything that group is for. For instance, I just became, finally, it took me a long time to bite the bullet and do it, the owner of a pellet smoker. And I don't mean the little tubes I've talked about for years. I mean like a Traeger, or in my case, a Pit Boss pellet smoker grill. And I ordered mine from Academy because they didn't have the one I wanted in stock. And it took a week for it to come in. And by the time I got it, I knew all the little quirky shit and exactly what to do about it. And I knew what not to do to cause problems because of 2 Facebook groups on Pit Boss Smoker Grills. That doesn't exist on X. X has not figured out how to do communities well. You end up with a bazillion tabs and shit. It just doesn't work. And as much as I want Nostr to succeed, it has a limited network effect because of relatively low number of people on it. Now, it is interesting to me that X has, some billion users on it. And I have like 20,000 followers on X. And Nostr has, maybe 1 million users. And I have almost 30,000 followers being on there for 3 years versus being on X for 15. So that tells me something about shadow banning and algorithms. But in the end, you got to go where the people are. And the reality is a lot of you guys are there. And, I said this years ago when I used to defend using Facebook back then. When they put phones in American homes and you ran a business, however you felt about phones, you needed a phone in your business too, right? And you had to have it. There was a time when if you wanted to buy a product from, let's say, Sears catalog, right? Remember, that's kind of gone now, but that used to be a thing, guys, when you were kids, the wish book for Christmas and all the toys and shit in it, right? Like there used to be a time when pretty much anything you wanted, you could get from Sears. It was the Walmart of its day. And it was all a catalog company. And you would see something in the catalog and you're like, oh, I have a question about this. And you would sit down and handwrite a letter. And you would mail it in, and son of a bitch of the company, Sears would send you a letter back answering your question. Then you would, okay, that works for me. I'll send in, because what else were you going to do? Get on your horse and ride 4 states over to their headquarters and ask, like, you weren't going to do that. Because we didn't have cars either when this was going on. So when we got phones, there was resistance to it with a lot of corporations saying, now we like the old way. Yeah, but your customers are going to go to the companies that do it the new way. So we need to be engaging where our customers are and where our friends are, and where our communities are. And that just happens to be nobody's beaten. Basically you've got these 2 giant platforms in X and Facebook, and they work differently. They operate differently, and they have different demographics. And if you're a business person, you have to kind of be in both worlds if you want to do the right thing by your people. In other words, what I'm saying is I owe it to me to not miss my family celebrating something for my grandson or my granddaughter. But I owe it to you guys to communicate with you where you are. So that's why I decided to go back. And it does seem like there's less censorship. Remember, it was when they threatened to shut down my private group and take away all the knowledge that people have built with each other. That's when I blew and I left out of there. Next, real quick, and this fits with Facebook. Huge congratulations to Chef Ken Daniels. Chef has been very open with the fact that he has had some issues with diabetes. And about 90 days ago, he decided enough of this shit. I'm gonna fight for my own life. I'm too young to be living like this. So he just got some lab results that if they were brand new lab results, you might not be in love with, but over 90 days, pretty damn good. So I'm just going to read a little bit of it. I have a link to the whole article that he wrote. My nurse practitioner walks in. No labs yet. They're being faxed, she says. Ask how I have felt. Better than I've ever felt. The mental clarity, the strength. I'm waking up rested. I'm breathing deeper. I'm not afraid of mirrors anymore, and I can see again. She nods, polite, neutral, maybe skeptical, but glances at the scale and reminds me I gained weight. Okay. I hand her my CGM reports. That's constant glucose monitor for you uninitiated. A printout thick enough to demand attention. She flips through it with casual detachment of someone used to being lied to. She says change like this takes a long time, that 90 days isn't enough for any remarkable change. Then a knock at the door. The fluffer returned. The fluffer is like the gopher guy. That's what he named him. My labs in hand, followed by the aroma of break room donuts and burned coffee. I didn't have to look. 3 months, no sugar, no carbs. My sommelier nose has gone feral. One whiff and I could name the brand, the glazed raspberry-filled Krispy Kreme. Oh, I knew exactly what kind of pastry sin just walked in. She hands the lab work to the NP. Imagine watching an android short circuit on a question it wasn't programmed to answer, tilting its head, spinning pinwheel buffering eyes like a walking 404 full-on blue screen of death. Your A1C is a 6.4. So I said that's type 2 diabetic. You wouldn't be overly joyed to have a 6.4 A1C. Well, you might have if you said 6.4 down from a 10. 90 days from a 10 to a 6.4 A1C. What about triglycerides, I ask? 200 down from almost 500. Well, that's interesting. My labs aren't good, not decent. They're a personal best. My war cry etched in ink and blood. She nods slowly, eyes scanning. Well, looks like the statins and the Ozempic is working. I let the comment hang in the air for a while. She looks for any deviation in numbers to lecture me about. All of my measurable labs were substantially improved. Then I tell her, no statins, no Ozempic. She looks up. Her face doesn't twist. It softens. Not out of empathy, out of calculation. Something's not adding up. I pulled out my 90-day summary, food logs, sleep patterns, exercise routines, ketone levels, every bite of ribeye, every tablespoon of butter. I show her how I live now, not because I need her approve, because I need her to see. She listens, not defensively, just quiet, like she's trying to make room in her head for something that was never part of the plan. This isn't on her checklist. These results aren't in her American Diabetes Association SOP manual. I wasn't trying to embarrass her. I really liked her as a person. I respected every bit of credential she earned. I wasn't angry. I was steady, defiant, yes, but respectful. I told her I'd be finding a new primary care provider. She nodded. It wasn't hostile. It was resignation, like she understood, like maybe she even agreed, but couldn't say so. Not here, not under this roof, not under this system. I encourage you greatly to read the entire freaking thing from the beginning to the end. I knew Ken was a great chef. I didn't realize what a badass writer he was. And this is the kind of thing that inspires other people. If you've been holding back, taking the plunge into fixing your shit with your diet, read this. And I always say this. It doesn't mean that you have to do keto or carnivore. Maybe you do more of a primal paleo approach, but you have to get off the garbage. You have to get off the junk. Guys, it is not healthy. The food they tell you to eat is not healthy. The standard American diet, it spells sad for a reason. It's what it makes you. It's what it makes everybody except the people selling you drugs. They're not sad. Everybody else is. Sad with you, sad for you, and sad to be you, right? That's what our diet is doing to us. That does not need to happen anymore. We need to change this, and we can just by changing what we eat and more by what we don't eat. And this is what I'll tell you. This is what I'll tell you about this. You will be amazed at how much less you actually eat because you will eat due to actual need of your body rather than a fabricated need of your body. When we keep throwing our blood sugar completely out of whack and we're constantly full but lacking nutrient, then we will always eat more food. Your body feels like it's starving, even though you just shoved a whole bag of Cheetos in it because you got the square root of fuck all in nutritional value out of the Cheeto. You got nothing. You might as well. You got calories. Don't get me wrong, but your nutrient that you brought into yourself is dog shit. It really is. And this country used to be pretty fit. And they'll try to make all these excuses about why it really wasn't that way or they weren't really fit. They were starving or whatever. No. The people that built this country were fit. I guarantee you, whatever age you are, when your great-grandpa was the same age, unless you really take care of yourself, your great-grandpa could have whooped your ass. You have 4 of them, You got 4 great grandpas. I bet your great grandma would have whooped your ass at your same age. These people were not starving. Okay? They were not starving. They built the country you're fortunate to live in. And if you want to be like them, eat like them. And don't believe that you're eating the same as they did when they were kids because you're eating the same brand of food. It's not the same food. I don't care what it's called. I care what's in it. Your great-grandparents, your grandparents didn't grow up. Hell, your parents didn't grow up eating fucking corn syrup. They didn't grow up eating completely denuded, completely processed white flour. They did. They didn't grow up eating seed oils. They didn't grow up eating fucking margarine. My grandmother would have cut you to death with a dull butter knife to watch you suffer if you tried to put margarine on her freaking homemade bread. She would have whooped, my old Ukrainian grandmother would have whooped your ass to death with a butter knife for you trying to put margarine on her bread. They ate bacon and sausage or something like it every day for breakfast. My grandmother used to make her own pierogies. That is like a noodle full of potato and cheese. And yet the family wasn't fat. So while like the easy button today is the carnivore keto way, if you're willing to do all the work to eat real food, you can eat a lot of the other things too. You just have to think about how much of it. You still have to look at some level of paying attention to how much carbohydrate you eat because it's sugar. I don't care if it's a organic potato, it's sugar. It's all sugar, it's all sugar, it's all sugar. I'll close with that real quick. That just on the sugar thing, I always get this. You don't understand. No, bitch, you don't understand. Okay? Don't tell me I don't understand. I've been making alcohol since I was freaking 21 years old. So I know a little bit about what is a sugar and what isn't. And if you give me 10,000 grams of sugar in the form of white cane sugar, 10,000 grams in the form of high fructose corn syrup, 10,000 grams in the form of potato, or 10,000 grams of carbohydrate in the form of malt extract, and I put them in 4 buckets and ferment them out and run them through my still, I'll get the exact same fucking amount of ethyl alcohol. So don't give me any bullshit that your carbohydrates aren't sugar. They're just real good carbohydrates for your brain food or whatever bullshit you're going to make up. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Tom says it depends on how much fat you eat. The fat is the thing they took from us. If you read the work of Dr. Weston Price, what you'll find is that he went out looking. He wanted to find an indigenous culture that was healthy, that was mostly vegetarian or even vegan. And he found none, not one. What he did find is a litany of rituals that people had for eating plants that included fermentation, sprouting grains, and things like that. Almost nobody ate it the way that it came from the field. Okay? There was something they did to it first, and it was never refined because they didn't have the ability to refine it, but it was usually sprouting or fermentation, primary things that were done to these foods. And that they went to extensive, great lengths to acquire nutritious animal fats. That they had entire parts of their society that were dedicated to making sure they had enough fat, and it all came from animals. About the only exception to it coming from animals was in certain Pacific islands, coconut oil, in the Mediterranean, olive oil. And that was about it. I mean, avocado oil is pretty good shit, but there wasn't a huge amount of it until some modern techniques were found to extract it. It can be made primitively, but they mainly were just eating the avocado. They weren't extracting avocado oil in Mesoamerica. You can do that with that as you will. You can keep trying to not believe this, or you can just simply say, self, I want to be honest, and I want to say that whatever humans evolved on is probably what they should eat. Because here's what you won't find. You won't find obese lions on the Serengeti. You won't find obese buffalo on the Serengeti either. There are lots of fat on them, but they're not obese for their species. You won't find anything in nature that's obese for its species. A hippo's got lots of fat. It's supposed to. It was evolved that way. By the way, they're vegetarians too. I'm just saying, right? I mean, technically they're vegans, except when they, mangle the occasional native or something like that. You don't find them fat. But if you went to a zoo and you look, and like the lions, like instead of having that sleek lion look, they were like just fat, right? They were just fat, like arm roll fat, And then you went to the wolf cage, and the wolves look like the typical American dog laying on their back, big old fat gut, can't see the last rib, etc. You went to the mountain lion, and the mountain lion's fat and laying there, purr snoring, doesn't get up, doesn't do anything. Would you blame the animals, or would you blame the diet the zookeepers are feeding them? You go look at the chimps, and the chimps are just giant overhanging guts, not big gorilla bellies, right? I mean, you know what I mean? They look like somebody getting on a city bus. You'd say that this zoo is run by morons that are feeding these animals a diet that isn't consistent with their nutritional needs. That's why you wouldn't say, oh, it's because they don't run around as much here as they do. Freaking lions sleep like 18 hours a freaking day in nature. You want to go fight one? If you say you do, you should put your wild turkey away. It's too early for that shit. Okay? No, you don't want to fight. Oh, kick your ass. And I'll tell you what, we put a muzzle on it and cap its claws. It's still going to kill you, isn't it? Because it ain't just tooth and fang that thing has. It's, 500 pounds of ferociousness that'll kick your ass. It's muscular, strong as hell. I just saw a video today. 3 big dudes. I mean, way bigger than me. Big freaking muscle dudes. Tug of war with a lioness, not even a male lion. And they had it through a cage so they wouldn't get hurt out of a tube. And the lioness is pulling on it like a dog with a pull toy. 3 dudes outpowered by 1 female lion. Tell me that lion would do well if we fed it dog kibble. It wouldn't, because it's not its natural diet. Every biological organism should eat a diet as close as possible to what they evolved eating, ancestrally appropriate. We evolved eating animals and animal products more than anything else. More than anything else. Because our evolution is a hell of a lot longer than the 10,000 years of recorded human history we've had anything approaching agriculture. And really, we've only had modern agriculture as we think of it today for a couple hundred years. I'm not even talking about the soy oil and all that other bullshit. I'm talking about really like industrial level, able to like plow fields and, get fertilizer by pouring acid on rocks and shit like that. That's all very, very new. You go back before that, and the diet of a human being anywhere around the world was heavy in animal product. Eggs as well. Eggs, butter, cream, cheese, milk, like all of those. If you want to be a vegetarian, I can help you be very, very healthy. Veganism is a privilege of the modern society you live in. It is not doable. I am sorry. It is not doable in a sustainable way without supplements and industrialized food products. And it's not a way that humans were designed to live. You don't want to kill an animal. I get it. But some chickens are abused for their eggs. Well, find somebody that doesn't do that. Get eggs from them. Just my thoughts. All right. Well, zoos are deliberately overfeed animals to keep them sluggish. Surprised? Yeah, I'm not. They're still not usually super fat, though, are they? Because if you fed them the crap that we feed our dogs, they would be. By the way, I'm just saying. All right. So anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's show. I want to tell you about our item of the day today. This is from Vivore. I had this around a few times in the past, but it is their 5-tray worm composter. I love this thing. And, we talked a lot about making compost today and amending garden soils and all. Probably the easiest thing you can do to improve your results with fertility in your gardens is worms. It's super easy. I have a 45-minute video that's like a podcast in itself that tells you how to set it up, how to manage it, how to take care of your worms. I will say one thing. People talk about keeping these in the kitchen. Don't do it. You will inevitably get dirt around, and so they can be kind of dirty. I really owe you guys an update of mine. It's doing fantastic. And a worm farm is like one of the best things you can do for yourself as a gardener. It is not just the nutrient, it's the biology. The biology is off the charts in worm castings. And the real reason you need to be making your own is I don't care how well they're treated. When you buy worm castings in a bag and it's like crumbly dirt. It's dried out that much. A lot of the biology in it has either died or gone extremely dormant. When you take fresh castings out of a worm farm and you're using them in that, you're seeding that garden with all the biology. And you're also, you know what else is in there? Tons of cocoons. You're putting even if you sift out the worms and keep them in the thing and put the compost in the garden separately, trust me, there are millions of little cocoons in there. Millions of them. I mean, so much so that I make my potting soil every year from worm compost and Johnson's soup bioreactor compost. And then when I'm doing my set outs, every time I pull a pot over, there's 20, 30 worms in the 4x4 pot. And I usually don't let any worms in. I try to keep them in their farms. I don't want them all crushed up when they get mixed or whatever. So where's it coming from? It's coming from that. Jake says, do I have a recommendation for a programmable electric kettle? Yeah, it's at tspaz.com. Jake, put kettle in and you'll find it. Unless you by programmable, you mean something like it will turn itself on at 3 a.m. I don't have that. But I have a kettle, a very good kettle. You set your temperature, it comes up to that temperature and it will hold that temperature for you. Go check that out anytime you want. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. I would like, if you're on Facebook, look up Chef Ken Daniels. His handle on Facebook is Kenny Daniels. Find that post and encourage him, because he writes, if you keep reading that article I read you today, this is where it gets dangerous. When you feel good about what you've achieved, it's so easy to let the devil in, to be like, oh, it won't matter, have one of those or just that or one cheat day. People, when they hit this stage, they need encouragement. So go encourage him. He's done a lot of work to help us around here, and he's fighting a battle. It's a battle. I'll tell you, when you change your diet and you've been living on sugars, even if you don't think of them as sugars because they're complex carbohydrates, you become addicted. All of these refined carbohydrates are incredibly addictive, and they say they're, a complex carbohydrate does not come from a bagel. I don't care what the fat dietitian told you. And so when you come off it, it's hard, and you break the addiction in that first 90 days, but it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. It's like a drug addict that is not having physical withdrawal anymore, but they remember. They remember how it felt. And if they do just a little bit of the drug, they're going to inevitably do a lot of the drug. And there's nothing that keeps people on track like knowing somebody's rooting for them. So get out there and do that for Ken, and do it for other people. When you see people improving their life, whether health and nutrition, getting off drugs, building a business, be their cheerleader. Because if you want good things in your life, that's the only way you're going to get it. There's two kinds of people in the world when they see somebody doing really, really well. And there's only two. There's people that go, it must be nice, or some version thereof. And those people, we have a word for them. Michael Saylor has a thing where he's talking to the journalist. She's like, when do you sell your Bitcoin? We have a word for people that don't own Bitcoin, Laura. We call them poor, right? We call them poor. Somebody even remixed it into like a rap song. We call them poor. We call them poor, right? Well, we have a word for people who say it must be nice. We call them poor, because even if they do rather well, they will always have a poverty mindset. They will never really get ahead. And no matter how far they go, they will never even be close to their potential. We call them poor because they are. They're impoverished in some way, emotionally, monetarily, physically. When someone says, oh, look at that guy driving that Ferrari, oh, it must be nice, you'll never have one. I mean, I'll never have one because I don't want to spend $600,000 on a car. But I see a guy with a Ferrari, I'm like, good for him, man. Whatever he did to get that, good for him. See a guy with a really great looking wife, good for him, man. Good. That's great. Big house, great. Buying a private jet, buying a big house, whatever it is, as long as he's not being a braggioso about it, just happens to be there doing his thing, good for him. Good for him. We don't call those people that say that poor. And the way you get there is by at least the people that you know, people who have tried to do something for you. When you see them doing well, cheer them on, congratulate them, and hold them accountable. If you look at the comment that I made when I shared Ken's post today, it said, see that you keep to it. I want to see a different Ken Daniels at TSP 25. So real quick, just a little bit on TSP 25. Again, it's going to be at Camp Carter. It's a YMCA camp. If you are in the alumni group, I shared some videos of it on the Telegram alumni group today. I'll probably share some tomorrow, the same videos with the larger audience that haven't been before, right, to show you some of the upgrades. But it's going to be really, really cool. I just want to tell you guys that are going to come that have been before, we have rules. There'll probably be new rules, and we need the veterans that have been around a while to help police the new people, stay in the boundaries of the rules, because we've got to make this work out. We don't want to be told, we don't want you to come back. I can't do this at my house anymore. I can't. It's too much disruption in our lives at this point in our lives. I'm a little done. Dorothy's all the way with having people in her home for a week, because 4 days before the first one of y'all gets here, there's staff living in our house because there's that much work to do to get this ready. That whole dynamic is going to change with this. We can have more people, better meals, easier on the staff to prepare the meals. No worries about weather really at all. Great system, great place, and a beautiful place. Big lake, river access, all kinds of extra stuff to do when you're not in presentations or don't want to be or whatever. It's going to be awesome. So thank you. On the book, again, the new version of the book with the corrections and the type settings corrected. As soon as I get stuff back from the guy that's working on it for me, he said it'd be like a couple days. I'll get it uploaded. It'll probably take about 5 days before they start getting printed that way. There's a conversion period there. It won't interrupt ordering. But if you want one with the errors, if you want a collector's edition or an extra collector's edition, might want to pick one up while you can, because we will be fixing that. And I'm really looking forward, by the way, in July to doing an interview with him. His name's Matt, because I think this is a great path for a lot of entrepreneurs. And again, on Thursday, 10 a.m. Central, if you're on the email list, you need to be checking your email. That email is going to go out. 100 seats in the Become Dangerous with ChatGPT course for solopreneurs. That is going to sell out very, very, very quickly. There's about 550 people on the list and 100 seats in the class. You do the math. It's a 20% ratio. So anyway, take care, guys. I'll catch you tomorrow with a great interview.